Hello, and thank you for joining me in this discussion of turbulence. In this video, we're going to go over an introduction of turbulence and how it relates to aircraft operations. You can watch my other videos that deal with the different types of turbulence. We are going to start by looking at the hazards that are encountered by aircraft as they fly through turbulence, and then we're going to look at the accident statistics that resulted from encounters with turbulence. There are three types of hazards that are associated with aircraft flying through turbulence, and those are the loss of control of the aircraft, airframe damage as a result of the turbulence, and then also passenger comfort and safety. In other words, individuals on the aircraft getting injured and having to go to the hospital. There have been a number of aircraft accidents that result from loss of control after the aircraft encountered turbulence. This one was memorable. It happened back in 1963. It was Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 705. It happened in February of 1963. A Boeing 720 was flying from Miami, Florida to Portland, Oregon. As it was climbing out, it was circumnavigating thunderstorms, and it encountered strong updrafts and downdrafts. Those strong updrafts and downdrafts resulted in moderate to severe turbulence. The flight crew lost control of the aircraft. After the accident, the investigation resulted in the aircraft being overstressed. They said that it experienced plus 1.5 to minus 2.8 Gs. So the pilots or the flight crew lost control of the aircraft. As the aircraft was overstressed, it broke up in flight, and as a result, it crashed in the Florida Everglades, killing 43 people. Another hazard associated with aircraft encountering turbulence is airframe damage. There are a number of examples of airframe damage, aircraft being overstressed and experiencing structural damage as a result of turbulence. We're going to look at a few. The first one deals with the British Overseas Airways Flight 911, which happened back in 1966. This was a round-the-world flight. The aircraft departed London on its way around the world with tourists, and their first stop, or one of their stops, was Tokyo. And they overnighted in Tokyo, and they were departing the next morning for Hong Kong. Since this was a tourist flight, they were going to fly around, circle around Mount Fuji. As the aircraft circled around Mount Fuji, it experienced extreme turbulence. The extreme turbulence resulted in the aircraft breaking up in flight at about 17,000 feet, and all on board, all 124 passengers and crew died in the accident. There are several pictures that resulted from this accident. Mountain climbers that were going up actually got pictures of this as they climbed the mountain. And then also a U.S. Navy A-4 attack aircraft was dispatched in short order after the accident to fly around the mountain. And that aircraft experienced plus 9 to minus 4 Gs. Here's another example of structural damage resulting from turbulence. This aircraft was a DC-8 flown by American International Airways. It was a cargo hauler. They were flying over the Colorado Rocky Mountains on December 9, 1992. The aircraft experienced severe to extreme turbulence. As a result of the turbulence, the number one engine departed the aircraft, as well as 19 feet of the outboard left wing. The aircraft made an emergency landing in Denver, where these pictures were taken. Yet another aircraft accident resulting from severe turbulence, which caused damage to the aircraft, structural damage, was JAL 46E, which happened back in March 31st, 1993. It was a 747 freighter. They departed Anchorage, Alaska, bound for Chicago, Illinois. At 2,000 feet MSL, the aircraft experienced severe to extreme turbulence. As a result, the aircraft lost its number 2 engine, and the aircraft was able to safely land back at Anchorage. Probably the most memorable accident that resulted from severe to extreme turbulence happened back in 1964. A B-52 bomber doing a test flight at low altitude near Pikes Peak in Colorado experienced violent turbulence, and as a result, the aircraft lost its vertical stabilizer and rudder, and the flight crew were able to keep the aircraft aloft for 4 hours. They eventually landed at Wichita, and this is all documented with video. You can watch the video or see the video at YouTube, and also there is an accident investigation that was done by the Air Force, and that is also a video on YouTube that you can watch. The tail surface of the aircraft, of course, was ripped away. They say during an 8-second period where the aircraft experienced violent turbulence. The aircraft, without a vertical stabilizer or a rudder, yawed back and forth longitudinally in a 20 to 30 degree arc, but it said that the aircraft maintained altitude. Once again, go out to YouTube and watch the accident investigation video. Another hazard associated with aircraft encountering severe turbulence is passenger safety. And every year there are a number of accidents that result from passengers being injured on commercial aircraft. Here is one that is very memorable. It was back in 1997, December of 1997. United Airlines 826 was flying from Tokyo to Honolulu when it encountered two very closely spaced severe turbulence encounters. This happened about 950 nautical miles southeast of Tokyo. The severe turbulence encounter resulted in one fatality. One passenger was killed, and 12 were seriously injured on the flight. We just saw how severe turbulence can be hazardous for aircraft and went through several examples. Now we're going to look at the accident statistics that have resulted over the years. The FAA conducted a weather-related accident study between 1994 and 2003, looking at all aircraft accidents, weather-related accidents, and the weather that caused those. We're going to look at Part 91, Part 135, and Part 121. Under Part 91, it shows that turbulence is a small portion of those weather accidents, only about 7.5%. So Part 91 aircraft don't get into turbulence accidents very often. Part 135 shows about the same trend, where turbulence is only a small portion, 7.4% of all weather-related accidents. Part 121 is another story. Turbulence causes most Part 121 weather-related accidents. This graph shows, or this pie chart shows, that turbulence accounts for 74.2% of all weather-related accidents under Part 121. Of course, Part 121 is air carrier operations. And this was discussed in another video. We talked about how an aircraft accident is defined as either substantial damage or injury. And they were very specific about injuries, but this is where most Part 121 accidents occur. It results from passengers and flight attendants getting injured on an aircraft, and as a result of turbulence, and that causes the accident, classification of an accident. In 2021, the NTSB released the safety research report titled Preventing Turbulence-Related Injuries in Air Carrier Operations. And in that report, they did a data analysis of Part 121 accidents that resulted from turbulence. Also, they highlighted safety issues and also made recommendations for avoiding turbulence injuries. The NTSB report found that turbulence accidents were a very small percentage of Part 91, or general aviation accidents, and also Part 135, or air taxi, air charter accidents. Whereas under Part 121, which is air carrier, turbulence caused the majority, a large number of accidents. The report showed that over a 30-year period from 1989 to 2018, there is no clear trend in the change of Part 121 turbulence-related accidents. Some years it's as low as 20% of all accidents, and other years turbulence caused more than 50% of all air carrier accidents. The report also showed that most Part 121 turbulence accidents were a result of convective turbulence. In other words, thunderstorms, flying around thunderstorms in close proximity to thunderstorms. Also, it showed a major contributor to Part 121 turbulence accidents was clear air turbulence, flying in the jet stream or around the jet stream where there is strong wind shear. And then finally, a smaller percentage was flying in mountain wave. The report also analyzed the time of year that most turbulence-related accidents occur. And as you can expect, during the summertime, you see an increase in turbulence-related accidents as a result of convective weather. In other words, flying near thunderstorms. Whereas during the wintertime, you can see maximums in February and December in clear air turbulence and also in mountain wave. Clear air turbulence and mountain wave usually occur when the jet stream is strong, and the jet stream in the northern hemisphere is the strongest during the wintertime. The NTSB report showed that most turbulence-related accidents occurred during the en route descent phase, just as the aircraft leaves cruising altitude and starts descending to their destination, followed by the second highest, which is en route cruise, when the aircraft is at flight levels and people are milling about. The report also highlighted the altitudes at which these accidents occurred, and the majority of the accidents occurred below 20,000 feet as the aircraft descends from cruise altitude. The NTSB report showed that flight attendants were the most likely recipients of serious injury as a result of turbulence. And it shows here approximately 78.9% of all injuries were encountered by flight attendants, whereas passengers were a smaller percentage, 21.1%. The report highlighted the areas of the aircraft that flight attendants were most likely to get injured, and it showed that most flight attendants were injured when they were in the aft cabin and typically in the galley. Also near the lavatory and also in the jump seat are areas where they got injured frequently. Flight attendants were most frequently injured while they were preparing the cabin for landing during the descent, followed by conducting cabin service at cruise altitudes. Passengers were most frequently injured by turbulence when they were using, waiting for, or walking to or from the lavatory, and that was followed by seated unrestrained, which means the passengers are in their seats, but they were not using their seat belts. This diagram shows the seatbelt use for persons who were seriously injured in turbulence. And what it indicates is that flight attendants were injured most frequently when they were not using their seatbelts. Of course, they were up, walking around, and performing their duties. Whereas passengers were injured mostly when they were not using their seatbelts. It was very rare that someone was injured when they were using their seatbelt. I think in this accident investigation they found only one person that was injured who was using their seatbelt. The NTSB also analyzed the body region that people were injured during a severe turbulence accident, and the results showed that most injuries were experienced to the lower extremity, both for passengers and also flight attendants, followed by injuries to the spine. Overall, in the past 30 years, there have only been 3 fatalities as a result of turbulence, but annually, there are typically about 58 injuries per year. That's a quick overview on turbulence-related accidents and the hazards associated with turbulence.